In this video I'll show you oil production and consumption of different countries. Please subscribe and like my video. Let's go.
United States, production 20.88 m, consumption 20.25 m, remaining 0.63 m. Saudi Arabia, production 11.11 m, consumption 3.65 m, remaining 7.46 m. Russia, production 10.73 m, consumption 3.68 m, remaining 7.04 m. Canada, production 5.69 m, consumption 2.45 m, remaining 3.24 m. China, production 4.98 m, consumption 15.15 m, deficit 10.16 m. Iraq, production 4.44 m, consumption 0.92 m, remaining 3.52 m. Brazil, production 4.22 m, consumption 3.03 m, remaining 1.19 m. UAE, production 4.15 m, consumption 0.94 m, remaining 3.21 m. Iran, production 3.99 m, consumption 2.14 m, remaining 1.85 m. Kuwait, production 2.91 m, consumption 0.37 m, remaining 2.54 m. Mexico, production 2.10 m, consumption 1.74 m, remaining 0.36 m. Norway, production 2.02 m, consumption 0.23 m, remaining 1.79 m. Kazakhstan, production 1.96 m, consumption 0.29 m, remaining 1.67 m. Qatar, production 1.82 m, consumption 0.30 m, remaining 1.52 m. Nigeria, production 1.54 m, consumption 0.52 m, remaining 1.03 m. Algeria, production 1.44 m, consumption 0.43 m, remaining 1.02 m. Libya, production 1.25 m, consumption 0.23 m, remaining 1.02 m. Angola, production 1.18 m, consumption 0.13 m, remaining 1.05 m. Oman, production 1.06 m, consumption 0.21 m, remaining 0.85 m. Indonesia, production 0.87 m, consumption 1.73 m, deficit 0.86 m. Argentina, production 0.81 m, consumption 0.71 m, remaining 0.10 m. Colombia, production 0.80 m, consumption 0.32 m, remaining 0.48 m. India, production 0.80 m, consumption 5.05 m, deficit 4.25 m. Venezuela, production 0.76 m, consumption 0.37 m, remaining 0.39 m. UK, production 0.75 m, consumption 1.40 m, deficit 0.64 m. Egypt, production 0.67 m, consumption 0.85 m, deficit 0.18 m. Azerbaijan, production 0.62 m, consumption 0.11 m, remaining 0.51 m. Malaysia, production 0.58 m, consumption 0.72 m, deficit 0.14 m. Australia, production 386 k, consumption 1.12 m, deficit 0.74 m. Turkmenistan, production 272 k, consumption 152 k, remaining 120 k. Republic of Congo, production 267 k, consumption 12 k, remaining 255 k. Gabon, production 204 k, consumption 16 k, remaining 188 k. Bahrain, production 189 k, consumption 72 k, remaining 117 k. Vietnam, production 187 k, consumption 1.02 m, deficit 0.84 m. Ghana, production 174 k, consumption 110 k, remaining 64 k. South Sudan, production 146 k, consumption 14 k, remaining 132 k. Germany, production 131 k, consumption 2.05 m, deficit 1.92 m. Chad, production 124 k, consumption 15 k, remaining 109 k. Peru, production 118 k, consumption 210 k, deficit 92 k. Italy, production 116 k, consumption 1.25 m, deficit 1.13 m. Pakistan, production 101 k, consumption 473 k, deficit minus 372 k. South Africa, production 95k consumption 601k deficit, minus 506k. Turkey, production 83k consumption 1.08 m deficit, 0.99 m. France, production 80k consumption 1.55 m deficit, 1.47 m. Syria, production 75k consumption 138k deficit, 63k. Netherlands, production 70k consumption 872k deficit, 0.80 m. Sudan, production 68k consumption 127k deficit, 59k. Romania, production 67k consumption 221k deficit, 154k. Uzbekistan, production 64k consumption 91k deficit, 27k. Denmark, production 63k consumption 152k deficit, 89k. Bolivia, production 58k consumption 87k deficit, 29k. Cameroon, production 54k consumption 40k remaining, 14k. Spain, production 47k consumption 1.27 m deficit, 1.22 m. South Korea, production 38k consumption 2.45 m deficit, 2.41 m. Hungary, production 36k consumption 175k deficit, minus 139k. Tunisia, production 35k consumption 108k deficit, minus 73k. Cuba, production 34k consumption 165k deficit, minus 131k. Belarus, production 30k consumption 131k deficit, minus 101k. Ivory Coast, production 29k consumption 60k deficit, minus 31k. Estonia, production 24k consumption 28k deficit, minus 4k. Poland, production 24k consumption 722k deficit, minus 698k. Republic of Congo, production 19k consumption 26k deficit, minus 7k. Austria, production 18k consumption 245k deficit, minus 227k. Israel, production 15k consumption 230k deficit, minus 215k. Mongolia, production 15k consumption 36k deficit, minus 21k. Yemen, production 15k consumption 60k deficit, minus 45k. Suriname, production 14k consumption 15k deficit, minus 1k. Bangladesh, production 13k consumption 160k deficit, minus 147k. Serbia, production 13k consumption 82k deficit, minus 69k. Portugal, production 12.93k consumption 191k deficit, minus 178.07k. New Zealand, production 12k consumption 154k deficit, minus 142k. Belgium, production 11k consumption 585k deficit, minus 574k. Chile, production 11k consumption 405k deficit, minus 394k. Croatia, production 11k consumption 70k deficit, minus 59k. Sweden, production 11k consumption 283k deficit, minus 272k. Philippines, production 10k consumption 453k deficit, minus 443k. Senegal, production 9k consumption 55k deficit, minus 46k. Finland, production 8k consumption 175k deficit, minus 167k.